touchdowns and the field goal. Yeah, that's 5 plays right there that made the game.
You're right.
Like, dude, are you kidding me?
Welcome to Men of Stille. I'm Jeremiah Castille, and we're coming to you from Black Watch Sports Performance here in Birmingham, Alabama. My awesome co-host, Simeon Castille.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 6 of Men of Steel, and we have an awesome show in store for you guys. To get it popping, we're going to give a little recap of the Iron Bowl. Obviously, the Tide was able to roll 52-21. My prediction for the game was 35-10. You didn't really give a prediction, but you obviously wanted Alabama to win.
I said Alabama winning.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my prediction.
Now, I guess give us a little insight to what you saw defensively from Alabama this past Saturday.
Well, overall, I thought they played a solid game defensively. Maybe a couple of breakdowns. The long run there in the first quarter.
Yeah,
but overall, I was pleased with their defensive performance.
Yeah, anytime you playing in a rivalry game like that, your emotions are flying high. It just means so much, to a lot of people. But I think Alabama just did what they had to do to get the job done offensively. To be able to score 51 points on your in-state rival, it's always a plus. There's a stat, I think Alabama has beaten every team by at least 20 points. To be able to do that to Auburn and give us the bragging rights for the next year, I'll take that every day.
Well, with really solid performance offensively, defensively, I really, I felt like Auburn's defensive line was one of the better defensive lines we faced all year.
Yeah.
And we had to get the ball out in the perimeter to our wide receivers. And doing that in the second half of the game, I think, was where we really was able to pull away from them
a little bit.
Yes.
Yep, no doubt. Now, we're going to, I guess, tie in the Alabama and Auburn rivalry a little bit with your background. Growing up in Phoenix City, Alabama, if you guys aren't familiar with the city of Phoenix City, it's about 30 minutes from Auburn. So, growing up in Phoenix City, being that close to Auburn, how was Alabama able to draw you to go to Alabama instead of Auburn?
Well, I think my measurables had a lot to do with that. Being 5'9" and 155 pounds, I went over to Auburn University on a recruiting trip. My head coach, Wayne Traywood, took me there. So on our way back, I asked him, I said, well, Coach, what did Coach Barfield think of me? He said, you was too little. So they didn't recruit me.
Okay.
I took my trip to Alabama. I think Coach Bryant thought the same thing, but Central High School of Phoenix City had a reputation of putting out good character ball players.
Yeah.
And Woodrow Lowe had played at the University of Alabama. We had a couple of basketball players that had played at the University of Alabama. Billy Jackson played on the national championship team at the University of Alabama. So I think Coach Bryant, knowing just that tradition that came out of Central High School, was willing to take a chance on me, and he did.
Okay. Well, they ended up obviously hitting a home run with taking a chance on a guy. Honestly, I don't think that Coach Saban would right now recruit a 5'9", 155-pound corner. Now, that's just my opinion, but that's awesome that you were obviously able to end up at Alabama, and I think on the right side of things. So I guess let's back up just a little bit. How did you get involved with playing football, period? I mean, was it something that you just grew up wanting to do? How did you get started?
Well, in my 7th grade year of middle school was 7th, 8th grade was very, very pivotal time for me. Mm-hmm. In that, in the 7th grade, I was out playing football, touch football one morning, and my future defensive back coach at Central High School, who I didn't know at the time, his name was Phil Elder, walked up to me one morning and he said, "Hey, you ever thought about playing football?" He said, "You got a pretty good arm." I was throwing the ball around. And I looked at him and said, "No, sir." And he said, "Well, you need to go out for football next year." He encouraged me to go out for my 8th grade year. Mm-hmm. Well, but in between my 7th grade and 8th grade year, I came to know the Lord. I went to a little Baptist church called Pleasant Grove Baptist Church down the street from my house. Gave my heart to Jesus Christ that summer of 1974. Never will forget it, and turned my life around. And so the next year, my 8th grade year, I went out for football under Coach Cleophas Hope as a quarterback in Central Middle School.
So you started out playing quarterback?
I was a quarterback.
Oh my gosh!
I got benched.
I was about to say, I hope y'all were running the read option, letting you run the ball.
Wishbone.
That's funny, man. I didn't know that.
I got after about 3 or 4 games, he came to me and said, "I think we're gonna let Mark Jackson. He was a taller player, had a better arm than me, and he moved me to left corner."
Okay, and you're stuck.
And I was a left corner from the 8th grade till my last year I played in the NFL.
Wow, man! Did you play in the nickel?
Yes,
a little bit. Okay,
play a little nickel, but never was a big guy. Wasn't the biggest player. But I had a tremendous desire, and I saw the game of football as a vehicle to overcome the circumstances, my personal situations that I had in my home.
And that's what I was going to touch on a little bit, is just your home life and growing up in a home where,
alcoholism.
Your mother was an alcoholic. Your mom and dad,
domestic violence,
going at one another a lot. Just growing up with a dysfunctional home. Yes. How did you use that to motivate you? Because I just remember you telling us about how serious you took football and how intense you were. Even at practice, guys being like, "Man, Jeremiah, why you going so hard?" So how did you use that to help motivate you?
Well, I believe the Lord really, when I came to know the Lord at 13, the Lord just really placed in my heart and gave me a vision that football was my way out to go to college. Economically, my family couldn't afford it. And just the dysfunctionality of my family. Both my parents had a 4th grade education. So education really wasn't even a priority in our home. And as I looked at the circumstances, and I just have to really give the credit to the Lord that He said, "You need to do something about this." I'm number 8 of 9 in our family, and none of my older siblings had graduated from high school. So I didn't see success, but as I said, the Lord just placed a deep desire in a vision in my heart to say, someone in your family needs to overcome all this. When you grow up in a home like I did, where there's a lot of domestic violence and alcoholism, then you see things you shouldn't see. And a lot of it was just publicly. So people in your community, they know your family. They know those shameful situations. And I got laughed at school. I got talked about at school. And so And those things hurt. Today, kids are dealing with those same type of situations. And what I did was I internalized it, not to the point to where it made me become dysfunctional, but I internalized it and let it be a motivator to say, hey, I'm going to do something about this.
So knowing that, none of your siblings, or your mom and dad didn't make it out of elementary school, none of your siblings made it past high school. So did you not feel pressure on you to make it and to succeed? And how did you handle that pressure?
Well, you talking about pressure, man. It was pressure every day getting up just to see to know if you were going to survive. If you come to know my dad and how he was a World War II vet, and just the violence, just the violent tendency. So there was pressure just to know if you was gonna make it through the day. Yeah. So I already had pressure there. Uh-huh. I saw football, school as an outlet. Okay. Hey, I can go to school and I can go to practice, and I don't have to deal with what I'm dealing with at home. I can get away from it, and then those in the discipline that came with football and the teamwork, setting goals, all of those things I used in my life academically. Those things helped me academically, and so it helped put me on a path of success.
Okay, awesome. So you graduated from Central High School. We're going to fast forward just a little bit. So graduated from Central High School, went on to Alabama, graduated from Alabama with a degree in communications.
Yes.
Ended up being a third-round draft pick with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And right after the draft, a couple months later, you ended up getting married. And you guys really didn't waste any time starting your family, right? So for all the parents out there, I guess I'll have to ask, and even with me being one of your sons, what were you thinking having 6 kids, man? 6 kids?
Having 6 children, I was trying to catch my dad. He had 9, so it was 9 that my mom had.
So did you always want?
Yes.
You always wanted a big family.
I wanted a big family.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess for the parents out there that may have a quote unquote problem child, what kind of advice would you give? And for anybody that doesn't know, I'm the problem child. It was myself growing up. So I needed a little bit more discipline than maybe the other 5 brothers and sisters I had. What kind of parental advice would you give for some of the parents out there that has a kid that may be hard of hearing or listening?
Well, 2 things I would say. You're parenting. You have I call it strong will. Simeon wasn't a problem child. He was strong-willed. And all parents, if you have multiple children, more than likely you're going to have a child that is strong-willed. And what I believe you have to do is not break their will, but direct it. Direct that will. And so 2 things I believe. Love. You have to show a lot of love, and you have to show discipline. Yeah. If you will love your child and you will discipline them, without discipline, then people can't solve problems. To me, the whole thing about being a parent is that life is full of problems. Mm-hmm. So when you teach and you instill discipline in your children, then you're really equipping them and teaching them how to solve problems, the problems that they're going to have in life. Yeah. If they can solve problems, then they can be a success.
Awesome. So for the listeners out there, 6 kids is split right down the middle. 3 boys, 3 girls. So for the boys,
I wanted all boys.
Well,
y'all better be glad that God gave you some sisters.
Oh man, it would have been.
It would have been really hard.
Yeah, I already know. Because well, Tim is the oldest, and then you had another son, myself, and then it's Leah and Rachel. Then you had Caleb and then another girl, Danielle. So I think
Thank God for girls.
Yeah,
it really God knew what He was doing, because
I don't think we would have made it.
Yeah, I don't think y'all would have made it, but I thank God for girls, because they really softened my heart on how I was. My whole deal was, I'm going to raise men. Mm-hmm. I'm going to raise soldiers. And
he trained us like soldiers. There ain't no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. But I mean, honestly, we are reaping the benefit of that. Myself being able to play at Alabama in the NFL, Tim, Alabama in the NFL, now coaching at Thompson. Go Warriors, on to the state championship. And then Caleb playing at Alabama and going on to pursue a career in acting. It really did mold us and shape us into the men that we have become today. And then all three of the girls graduating from Alabama with degrees. We're truly blessed to have,
So we broke. I like, for me, what we were able to do is we were able to break a generational curse of social economic things that was I call it in my backpack when I was born.
Yeah.
And when those things are, then you have to let them be a motivator for you to overcome those things. And with the help of the Lord and my walk with Him, He gave me the strength. He gave me the strength to overcome. He gave me the vision to. I visualized being a parent. I visualized playing in the NFL. I visualized playing at the University of Alabama. All those things were a vision for me, and I believe that's what faith, your personal faith in Jesus, can do. Is God will show you your future before it ever manifests itself.
So. Your faith in the Lord, your walk with the Lord, obviously it started at a young age. So you were able to make it, through high school, college, and then into the pros. So I guess what I want to know is, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the NFL trying to be a man of God and walk out your Christian faith?
The biggest challenge was temptation.
Yeah.
Temptation, because now you're successful at life. There was temptation from the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Temptation to indulge in things that comes along with success. And it was truly my relationship with the Lord and the study of His Word. Just really, I call it downloading. I like to share that with you. Downloading the Word of God, having a consistent, disciplined time to take the Word of God. And what the challenge was, there was not a lot of guys that was living out their faith.
Yeah.
So at times I may have felt, even though I wasn't alone, I felt
alienated a little bit.
Yes, yeah, because it just, you're in a small group and the guys that are not living, that don't have that lifestyle, that biblical lifestyle, biblical worldview, they laugh at you.
Yeah.
They talk about you. And
so how did you stand up to that? Because a lot of people kind of would like some insight. Because you do have that. Guys, they'll call you a square, or you Castille, you ain't cool, man. You ain't gonna come out to the club, you ain't gonna do this, that, and the third. So how did you stand up to those guys and be bold enough to say, hey man, I'm not gonna live this way?
Well, I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm 22 years old. I've been drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm there in rookie camp, and then we had some very obnoxious type play. They were just
guys with a lot of personality.
Yes, yeah. And they were, a lot of them were from the Miami area, just those areas. And so one day the Lord just started just kind of talking to me, saying, I was afraid of those guys. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Man, they were just had bold personalities, to get up in your face type of guys. And there was a little fear. And one day the Lord just spoke to me. He said, you better fear me more than you do them. And man, I'm going to tell you, that thing just quickened me and said, oh yeah, I fear God more than I do any of you all mortal guys.
Yeah.
And that day when the Lord spoke that to me, it gave me a strength. And from that point on, I started standing up to all of the things that was being said to me and trying to influence me to do what they were doing. And I can remember just telling the guy one day, he was, one of the starters on the team, big linebacker, guy from Miami. And one day he was saying something to me, and I just stopped him right there in his tracks. I said, man, I'll never do what you're doing. And I could see the boldness of that to let one of the leaders on the team know. And from that day on, I just stood my ground with them. And the Lord really raised me up. I started after he did. He honored me after my 6th game as a rookie. I was starting there. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I started winning the respect of those guys by being a guy that just showed up, did my job, did it well, and started winning the respect. And I found they started listening to me talk about the Lord.
Yeah. And I mean, that's awesome. Just to be able to experience starting out kind of timid, and then the Lord speaking to you, and then you listening to the prompting that the Lord gave you, and then winning the respect of your teammates. So the Lord, really blessed your football career. So you ended up, you started out in Tampa Bay. People don't know. The Bucs aren't very good right now, and they weren't very
back
good
then.
The jerseys were about as bad as
we were the Yuccaneers. That's what I call them.
Yeah. So going from the Buccaneers to the Broncos,
1987.
Yeah, really from one of the worst teams to one of the best teams and better teams in the league. Still to this day, you were able to make a play in the playoffs versus the Browns. It's called the fumble. Still to this day, people consider it to be one of the biggest plays in NFL playoff history. Kind of give us a little bit of background about that game, because there's a little bit more. There's a more spiritual aspect to the game than people may realize or may know.
Well, that was the 1988 playoffs, or it went into it 1988, but it was the 1987 season. Yeah. I started out in camp in Tampa Bay, and by the time 2 weeks into camp, I was no longer starting. I had started for the first 4 years of my career in Tampa Bay. My 5th year I wasn't a starter, and we were going into camp. And about 2 weeks into camp, Coach Ray Perkins, former Bama guy, was the coach, and I went and asked him to graciously release me because I saw, hey, I'm not going to be playing with this team. Mm-hmm. Well, I need to get with another team while camp is still in. Yeah. So he released me on a Monday, and that Monday night we were watching Denver and Miami play in a preseason game. Yeah. And this was my prayer. I prayed a prayer, and it was, Lord, I sure would like to be playing in Denver. And the Lord answered that prayer, because 10 o'clock the next morning, the Denver Broncos called our house. And I jumped on a plane and went to Denver. Wow. Got out there and impressed Joe Collier, who was the defensive coordinator, and Dan Reeves, the head coach. And they saw that I could play. I was athletic, not the biggest guy, but I could. And the plan was to put me in as a nickelback. Mm-hmm. So I went through the season playing the nickel. Yeah. And we get into the playoffs. In the first round, I think we beat the Houston Oilers, got to the AFC Championship game, and I was reading an article of a guy making a prediction that week before we played Cleveland. We was going to play Cleveland. Yeah. The year before, John Elway had led them on the drive and beat Cleveland in the last minute. This guy predicted that Cleveland would win the game. And there, I read that article, and I said, my prayer was, Lord, let me get in the game and make something happen. Yeah. Lo and behold, the game comes down to the last minute and, 25 seconds. Cleveland is driving to, I think, take the game into overtime or tie it up. Anyway, they're on the 6-yard line, and we got man coverage called. The series before that, I had got beaten on a touchdown play. And they called this, I think, the same defensive play. And I'm like, man, why did they call that play again? Well, I lined up and man bump position, and all of a sudden it just like everything slowed down. I had all day to think about what I was gonna do, And the thought came to my mind, last time you lined up like this, you got beat for a touchdown. You might want to do something different.
Yeah.
And I backed off of Webster Slaughter, who was the wide receiver, and they ran a quick toss play to Ernest Bynum. I beat Webster Slaughter on him trying to block me, and Ernest Bynum and I meet on about the 2-yard line. Yeah. And I tell people, to be honest, I didn't want to tackle him. Ernest Bynum was a man.
Yeah, he was a hog.
He and Kevin Mack, that duo was tremendous. But we work on strip drills, and I could see he started. He pretty much, I thought, was in his mind he's getting ready to score.
Yeah. So
he started easing up on the ball a little bit, and I hit the ball, and I landed right there on the 2-yard line, and the ball was right here, right beside me. I rolled over on top of it with about 2 tons of Cleveland Browns on top of me, and we go on to the Super Bowl 22.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Just to see how the Lord answered your prayer. I mean, in starting in preseason.
Yes.
You get released from the Bucs, watching Monday Night Football. Lord, I would love to play in Denver. The next day, the Denver Broncos called.
They called.
So you can't, man. The Lord answers prayer.
He answers prayer.
I mean, then to make it to the AFC Championship, and to petition the Lord. Lord, I would love to make a play, make something happen in this game, and I mean to cause the fumble and recover it to win the ball game, man. It don't get
the Super Bowl. I ended up with an interception. I asked the Lord for an interception in the Super Bowl. We ended up with an interception. We didn't win the game.
I was about to say, why didn't you ask him for the win? Shoot, forget the interception. Man, that's awesome too.
Well, you being a former DB, know it's hard to get an interception.
Hey, I know that's right. Yes, sir.
I didn't ask for a win. Maybe that's where I went wrong. If I had to do it all over again.
So, man, that's such a that's such a cool story just to hear how it all played out. Really, just that entire season played out for you, and how the Lord answered your prayer.
I like to just say, real before we go off, is that He not only answered my prayer in my football career, but He answered my prayer in my personal life. My mother's sober today. That was one of the things that motivated me and drove me as a young man coming up through high school and college. And today I have a mother, your grandmother, who's been sober for 33 years.
And she sobered up the year I was born. Yeah. 1985. Man, and she is, anybody that's met Grandma Mary knows that she is an amazing, amazing woman. So obviously you're not a stranger to big time games. We got the SEC championship coming up. Georgia versus Alabama. Alabama is basically, I think, a 2-touchdown favorite going into the game. So what's your prediction?
Alabama wins. I'm going to stay safe. I'm going to give score.
Well, okay, let me back up. What do you think? What are one of the keys to Alabama winning the football
game? Well, if you watch them all year, they continue to execute on offense, keep that offensive juggernaut going.
Yeah.
Use those perimeter guys, those skill guys.
Yeah.
Put a bunch of points on the board. Get Georgia out of there, out of what they would want to do. I think Georgia has a great running game. They will want to kind of control it and make them maybe have to to depend on the throw it on their passing game. And just play solid defense.
Yeah,
solid defense.
I think. In my opinion, if we can stop their run between Holyfield and Swift are two. As good a backs as you're going to see. If we can control the running game, then I think that we're going to be able to pull this one off. Now, if the running game gets going, and then I feel like that will open up the offense a little bit for Fromm. Then I think it could turn into a shootout. But I think that's going to be the key, us being able to control their running game. But obviously, I think the tide is going to roll. Hopefully. My prediction is I'm going to go. I think we're going to hang 42 on them. And I think they are probably going to score about 21 to 24. So I would say 42-24 is going to be
I
my
like
prediction.
that.
So,
I like that.
hopefully the tide will roll, and we'll see you guys here next week on Men of Stille.
Yes. And remember, at Men of Stille, we walk by faith, not by sight. God bless.